We have all been there. You set an ambitious goal the night before, but when the moment actually arrives to do the work, you pause. You put it off, simply because you didn't feel like it. Here is the unvarnished truth. You are probably never going to feel like it. If you sit around waiting for the perfect surge of motivation to strike, you might start your task, but that feeling will inevitably vanish 10 minutes later. Biology dictates this response. Our brains are evolutionarily hardwired to conserve energy, avoid struggle, and seek out instant gratification at almost every turn. Self-discipline functions as a trainable skill. It requires the active assertion of your conscious, higher-order goals over these hardwired basic desires. Training that skill starts with mastering our first microdiscipline, the 3-second rule. Whenever you realize you are avoiding a necessary task, simply count 1, 2, 3. Then execute instantly. By acting within that narrow window, you force yourself into motion before your brain can manufacture a convenient excuse to stop you. You are effectively engineering a mental bypass. Winning this tiny initial battle against your own resistance provides the necessary seed for all long-term success. Once you know how to bypass that initial friction, you can scale this momentum to structure your entire day, starting the very moment you open your eyes. The second microdiscipline is making your bed the absolute second you wake up. It sounds almost trivially simple, but it secures an instant psychological victory, sparking a chain of momentum and productivity that carries you through the morning. You can stack this right into our fifth discipline, using the 3-second bypass to do exactly 10 jumping jacks before you step into the shower. If you aren't used to exercising, starting is the hardest part. This tiny daily exertion builds the raw discipline of keeping physical promises to yourself. As you move into your workday, you must apply the third discipline, actively making procrastination inconvenient. If you work from a desk that is 3 feet away from a couch and a fridge, distraction is guaranteed. Force yourself to physically relocate to a distraction-free zone, like a public library, where you have nothing else to do but focus. Once you sit down, implement the fourth discipline, single tasking. We live in a noisy world and often assume we are naturally good at doing several things at once. In reality, only about 2% of the population can actually multitask successfully. A Stanford University study demonstrated that chronic multitasking actively impairs your cognitive control, lowers your efficiency, and fills your mind with clutter because you lose the ability to filter out irrelevant information. To clear out the rest of that mental clutter, enforce discipline number 6, a daily social media detox. The average person spends almost 2 hours a day scrolling through feeds, a habit directly linked to increased rates of depression. Switching your phone off for just a few hours forces you to reconnect with the physical world around you. Winning your morning and managing your workspace ultimately comes down to manipulating environmental friction. You are systematically making bad habits harder to execute and making productive focus your path of least resistance. This control over friction extends into the afternoon, where we inevitably encounter neutral time, the hours we typically waste just getting from point A to point B. This brings us to discipline number 7. Instead of sitting in traffic complaining about the cars ahead of you, use the 3-second bypass to turn on an educational audiobook or a podcast. You instantly transform wasted transit hours into a wealth-building education. When you finally get home, implement discipline 8. Swap out just 30 minutes of television consumption for reading a book to actively stimulate your brain. There is a reason the world's greatest investors prioritize this. Warren Buffett famously advises reading 500 pages every single day, noting that knowledge accumulates exactly like compound interest. Bill Gates maintains his competitive edge by reading nearly a book a week, and Mark Cuban dedicates 3 entire hours of his day to reading. By comparison, only about 1 in 50 people facing financial hardship report having any kind of daily self-improvement reading habit. Finally, before you go to sleep, complete the 9th microdiscipline, the daily gratitude audit. Take 10 minutes to consciously write down at least 3 things you are thankful for. As Tony Robbins points out, when you are actively grateful, fear disappears and abundance appears. This audit actively wires your brain to focus on open opportunities rather than the negative thoughts that quietly drain your energy. By optimizing those quiet gaps in your schedule and ending your evening with gratitude, You shift your brain's default operating state from passive consumption to active, intentional growth. These small actions, making a bed, doing jumping jacks, reading investments. To see the actual return on those investments, we rely on the 10th and final discipline, the 21-90 rule. This provides the exact, measurable timeline required for your entire routine to transform. This timeline illustrates the progression. Daily action hits your first milestone at day 21, forming a new habit. The graphic extends to 66 days, ingraining the behavior in your subconscious. Reaching the 90-day mark officially turns these habits into a permanent lifestyle. Progress relies on the repetition of these small actions. Willpower functions as a trainable skill, developed through the consistent measurement of your own discipline. The challenge for you right now is simple. Pick just one of these micro-disciplines, whether it's the morning jumping jacks or the evening gratitude audit, and commit to it for the next 90 days. Unbreakable willpower ultimately emerges from the thousands of tiny wins, one in the